lovely little scenery today. I hope you like the purple glow. It's very dark outside. I just got home from work and, I've decided to add some lighting props, brighten things up. The cherry blossoms go quite well with the cherry blossom aesthetic. So that's the grift we're going for currently, at least. It's pretty potent in my opinion. And I am a big fan personally. You can have your own opinion about that, but, I like it. It's very chill. Still thinking about shaving the old beard off, becoming a true bald bastard. I think it'd be amazing, honestly. I don't know. Maybe when it gets a little warmer. It's like I look at days like today, and then I'm like, maybe I'll think twice about that because it's looking pretty nasty outside. It's not only is it raining outside, but it's also like these random snowdrops are falling throughout the sky while it's raining. So it's like a double whammy of what in the world is going on sort of ordeal. But yeah, this is just Appalachian weather in a nutshell. The skies unleash their torments. We are bathing in their gifts, or something along those lines, something nerdy like that. You get the picture. And we're back into our fiery lava prison. So the real question is, what are we talking about today? Where are we going? And I figured, you know what? Maybe it's time to have one of the more interesting conversations, right? Maybe it's time to do the whole natalism versus anti-natalist arguments and viewpoints. So for those unacquainted with this little cute issue, for those who have somehow managed to spare themselves this level of degenerate disgust, I envy you. But sadly, I'm going to have to remove that soft, fleshy layer, and we're going to dig right down deep in it. So basically, there's a few different ways you can interpret the natalist versus anti-natalist arguments. But it comes down to the idea of whether or not, continuing the human species or having children or X, Y, and Z is somehow moral or immoral. So there's a lot of political implications that go into that too, but we'll try and keep it at least a little bit simple today, because you can get pretty deep on a topic like this. At least I think so. And ZMI is not the place where I want to get deep, although I am almost 93, and then it'll just be 2 more long, tedious, altar-clicking adventures. But yeah. So, let's see, where do we start talking about natalism and anti-natalism? I think a good place as any is to, take at least my interpretation of how the argument should play out, or what are the key points of it, and maybe delve into it deeper. So, one, we have to divine if there's any intrinsic value in life, right? And that's up for a lot of personal bleh. I'm sorry, I'm tired. I got home from work. That's why I changed clothes. Imagine changing clothes outside of work. But yeah, it's going to take a lot of personal insight to divine whether you believe in one way or another as far as that goes. But I think virtually anyone who considers it enough will agree with, one of the 4 ancient pillars of Buddhist wisdom, that, existence is suffering. The price you pay for consciousness, or the price in the things you give up to be able to reason, to be able to exist in the world, is that you are suffering. Not only a little bit of suffering, but you are suffering for as long as you exist. There is no point where you cease suffering, or until you cease existing. The two are interchanged and basically one and the same. And so, any moment when you're at least cognizant of your situation and you are not suffering, count yourself lucky as far as I'm concerned, because that is a rare and fortunate gift, especially in my world. Maybe your world's a little bit different, but, I hope it is, at least in some ways. But yeah, so if we can assume that, bringing someone into the world is increasing the amount of suffering in the world just because you brought new life into the universe, it's not like you can undo that, and until that person removes themselves from the universe, they're going to be suffering. Just de facto, suffering exists. And as they exist, they suffer. So what's the solution to that? There's not really any solution. If you look at the Buddhist text and you examine it, and that's way too long of a discussion for one video, but you can find at least their own unique coping mechanisms, and you're going to discover, at least that's what I have in my life, that most of getting through a lot of life is just figuring out your next cope. And so, this would be like ancient Buddhist cope. Yeah, I have been enjoying Buddhism, though, in my trek through learning about all the religions, especially considering how rude it is at times. I'm not going to go into it, but if you know, you know. Yeah, let's just say women can't get enlightenment. Ha ha. I'm bullying, but, hee hee hee. I still have to laugh at all the whine-ons and such that, claim to support this and are meditating and are these hippy-dippy generations when they really don't know what the principles say about women, and what a lot of the things that go on there are probably not things they would agree with or even like very much, but to each their own. I find it humorous, so I'm gonna roll with it. But yeah, so we've established that life is suffering, and if you're bringing a new life into the world, you're increasing the amount of suffering in the world. Seems like a natural fit to just say that's a universal evil, right? Is it that simple? And obviously not. There are a whole bunch of benefits to life, and you could make arguments, although I personally won't, but you definitely could make arguments that humans have a net impact that's positive on the universe. Like, for instance, if we're the only intelligent life, well then, that's a very sad universe, first of all, but let's pretend we're special, or, we have some sort of divine significance. Suddenly you can start attributing things to human beings and positions to human beings and placing, the utmost value on them. And then you can say, well, human being suffering is working towards something. It's working towards a better universe, not just for human beings, but for, the universe as a whole. Then if you can ascribe some sort of divine value or some sort of unique perspective from human beings. I'm not sure you can do that, and that kind of falls apart in the face of, other life existing if, Marxism isn't the great filter. And I mean, if Marxism is the great filter and human beings are just meant to, fall to it, then we weren't very special or very interesting to begin with. So that's as far as the great filter shenanigans goes. But yeah, click on the rune pouch, you scrub. Jeez. Luis. Yeah, so what other arguments could you make potentially for bringing new life into the world, right? For increasing the world's suffering? You could say, I have a family lineage, and because my ancestors have suffered, I obviously must continue the train of suffering, because that would somehow be wrong due to some moral circumstance, or, who's going to be left to tell the tale. And yeah, I could see that potentially. It's an interesting thought, but, when you factor in an potential entire human life for suffering, all for what amounts to basically hubris, I'm not sure I agree that the cosmic scales of justice add up there. So what really is there to say we should continue to have children or continue to propagate the human species? Is the human, this doesn't even get into the arguments about how humans probably are not good for the universe as a whole, are not something that should exist, right? Why did I put that away? I need that. Shift click. Yeah. So if humans are not innately valuable to the universe, which I don't think they are, I think, even if you assign divine or some sort of, rhetoric to human beings, it doesn't somehow magically make them more important than all of the other species in the world. And, it certainly doesn't make them any more important than all the other species in the universe. Even if we're the first intelligent life, I don't think that necessarily makes us all that amazing or important. It makes us interesting from a purely theoretical standpoint, but if we understand the universe as it currently is to be some, forever expanding, lonely void, everyone will eventually be in isolation either way. So being the first or being the last, up until, certain polar extremes, it's not going to have any real impact on much of anything. Everyone's just going to develop in their own atomistic way all by themselves, and there's really nothing, physically anyone can do about that. And if that's the case, well then, I don't really see any reason for any species to continue, because, existence is suffering, struggling against that, and suffering for no real reason, for no real purpose other than chasing the next hedonistic pleasure, or chasing the next, very likely for most people, the next cope. Isn't very fulfilling in the grand scheme of things. So how do we escape this nihilistic dread, right? And I would argue that, while life is is certainly a tragedy, and that certainly it's not worth living. At the end of the day, we are here now, and sure, we can act in a way that's morally responsible for us and things we deem fit, and let other people make their own moral decisions. And then so, there we have our, safety little blanket. We can hide behind our moral superiority cloak. I don't drive a car, haha, you're cringe, dude, don't drive a vehicle. And we can still, justify our life choices and our cosmic scale of things. And, I'm not sure if, like, for instance, I was a Chad or much higher sexual marketplace value, where I wasn't some short, like, autistic little nerd. Like, would I have reproduced at some point? Like, I've already accepted that's not likely to happen, given my age and, just society in general and where things are trending. Like, it's very unlikely I succeed unless I want to go to, like, the third world, and I think I'd rather just wait for AI than pursue that route. I have the currency to do it, but I'm not really interested in doing something like that. I don't think it's going to improve my life. So for me, it's pretty easy to just firmly sit in, like, the moral camp, which I think, morality-wise, it's very difficult to argue against the anti-natalist position. Now, if you can argue, for instance, that maybe as an adult, your wants and your desires outweigh those of, say, a child who isn't even capable of really understanding its suffering until a certain age, right? We can sort of use this development, like a abortion type argument, where we can say, well, it's not really viable to feel suffering yet. Like, it cries a lot, but it doesn't really understand crying. It's not really, cognizant after all. It's only 1 year old. Like, what's a big deal if it's, innately suffering in the world and has, unfulfilled desires already that are so overwhelming it can't even function? I mean, what's the big deal, right? Oof. That's a little dark now that I think about it. Maybe veer a little bit away from that, but I don't know. It's hard for me not to think about children and get at least somewhat dark. Sorry. It cannot be helped, but So if existence is suffering, and we are meant to suffer, and the path to reduce our suffering is, of course, a minimalist lifestyle, which I embrace. That's another video topic in and of itself, but minimalism good, and all of the other tenets that lead to at least personal enlightenment. Let's just take it like full Buddhist around the circle. And then couldn't you argue then that maybe, for instance, if you're a pro-natalist, that, your children also, if they're raised properly, can follow that route and then continue some sort of genetic lineage of people that, suffer at least much lower than the average. And so maybe for your specific circumstance and your specific lineage, it could be worth it to justify, having progeny and making all of this, like, tremendous expense and sacrifice and human suffering. Because after all, right, why not? Like, what else is there to do? It certainly is our biological imperative, and Lord knows, like, a number of biological imperatives, like rape, like, cheating, like, all of those things that we simply can't ignore them, and we have no control over them, no matter what. And we definitely shouldn't restrain any of them, because they're just innate human desires. Yep. That is the modern day world. That is the fully Marxification of pleasure, if one will. Truly a wondrous sight to behold, and all of the things that come out of it. Absolutely just fantabulous. God, it's like giving me a headache just even considering it. But it is unavoidable. At the end of the day, Marxism now controls pretty much every institution. It pervades society. It's leaking in on you. The voices in my head tell me they're watching me even at this point. They're, like, speaking Russian to me, telling me about the color revolution, dude. America needs its own great leap forward coming soon, and gosh darn it, I better be the one to deliver it to them, right? Ugh. But yeah, enough asides. Anyways, so is there some pathway through birth and through existence that doesn't involve an excess amount of suffering that could somehow make life justifiable without passing on your suffering, because the way most people seem to like trundle through life and find any sort of acceptable medium in it is, well, yeah, but I have, this little thing running around, or I've spawned this individual that not only shares in my suffering, but is a unique extension of me, and therefore it continues my suffering on infinitum, throughout the ages, so that my lineage and my children will be suffering for as long as the stars burn. I'm not sure if that, to me, is compelling either, but certainly trying to escape the nihilistic trap, it's becoming an interesting option. But yeah, so what are some better solutions to this whole natalist, anti-natalist little conundrum here, right? So we have in a situation where, we've deemed an action that's our biological imperative is naturally, a universal evil, and yet we're still encouraged to participate in that evil, in that particular sin, and then continue it for, ad infinitum, to guarantee that such sin never leaves at least the universe, never cleanses the universe from our degenerate taint. Yeah. I guess the only realistic way you escape any of this is simply through, the religious text, and trying to place an understanding on humans as, masters of the universe, or masters of the dominion, and that, you're created in the image of some sort of holy maker, and that because you're a divine being who's personally described by the, the unmoved mover, in a sense, or the creator, then being in his image and being, part of him means that you're suffering towards a goal of, like, rapture or personal, growth, or, like, ending up in, his kingdom or in his presence, right? So the whole ordeal is worth it and justified in the end, because there is some reward or payout for your suffering. Again, like I've said a few different times throughout my autistic schizo rants, like, suffering is fine as long as there's a worthy payout at the end. I think people can endure all sorts of horrific things if there is some sort of, payout. And the question, of course, boils down to your belief systems, but how do you, reason through any sort of pro-natalist position or some sort of justification for the suffering of life without automatically deferring to some sort of higher power, or some sort of, thing that is an unproven or impossible to prove, for instance, like Buddhism and the whole reincarnation idea, right? So, your actions in this life affect the next, and you'll have to go through redemption arcs, and you're suffering as X, Y, and Z because of how you behaved in previous lives, and there's some universal cosmic justice scale, just like, in a Judeo-Christian sense, like the unmoved mover is, the ultimate sense of justice in the universe, and that its justice is so powerful and so beyond us that we couldn't even begin to comprehend it. Instead, it's just something that we have to accept is there, and then just sort of abide by it. And while those are comforting thoughts, if they were, something you could rationally and reasonably explain, it's very difficult to get to that point, I think, for a number of reasons and a number of people. Like, one, the text really doesn't mention anything in particular to this. It hints at that, especially like the Gomorrah and a few other places where it's discussing this kind of stuff. But yeah. So, what is there to do about all of that? Well, the obvious solution is that, in fact, having children allows you to collect larger welfare checks, and that more money is more problems. And so you're increasing not only your problems, but if you're taking on additional problems, you're taking on responsibilities, and you're becoming a pillar of your community. So, one could argue that the best possible solution is to become the welfare kangs that one was always meant to be, and to absorb as much as the system and become the kingpin of your communities. And so through having as many spawns as humanly possible with as little responsibility as possible, you actually achieve the maximal amount of responsibility. And you and your progeny certainly aren't, aren't wards of the state or anything so awful, like, heaven forbid the thought, right? Ugh. This just keeps getting worse and worse every way I look at it. And I just did that. Wow, that one was an impressive series of misclicks. I'm actually proud of myself for that one. How in the world did I manage to mess that up so badly? I'm exhausted because I got back from work, I cooked, and now it's, time to almost go to bed-y already, even though it's still such an early hour. It's going to be an interesting sleep, though, with the pitter-patter of rain on my rooftop combined with, knowing snow is developing on the ground. I'm sure tomorrow the streets will be a giant sheet of ice that'll be just lovely to attempt to traverse. But yeah, on a more nihilistic note, I did put in my 2 weeks at my position. I was asked to stay and train my replacement for a little bit, so I'll probably go ahead and do that just to be a good boy, but I'm about to re-embrace the neat lifestyle, as one would say. I think the terminology goes something along the lines of no pee, no work, I believe is the motto people are, rocking around the internet. And I'm a pretty big fan of that, honestly. For instance, as someone that gets no pee, why should I be paying the exorbitant amount of taxes every year I get, instead of potentially considering either, becoming a citizen of another country and paying taxes there, renouncing U.S. citizenship, figuring something out. I have untold options about where I'm going as far as, moving towards and escaping the Marxist praxis that's certainly coming to devour us all. Oh, I can't wait, dude. It's going to be such a lovely time seeing America get its own color revolution. I can't wait to see American citizens hounded up based on, their horrible rightist views, and then having everything just go to absolute carnage for a long time. Who knows, though? Maybe we come out of it looking as strong as China, right? One can only hope that we get a fate that we... Gosh darn it, I forgot to... That we can only work towards a fate we deserve. Oh, so much. Thank you for repairing my pouchies. I love it when my pouchies get repaired. That's so totes pogger. By the way, I'm using all of these just because I had a billion of them and I want to get rid of them. And I just want to have stamens in my bank for this and herbivore, just to free up the bank slots, because I'm making compost potions at this point with my Harlander. It's just not worth it for me to go buy the chocolate dust and grind it up. That's way too tedious. I guess I can at least try and speak about RuneScape too. Let's see. Yesterday I got a singing crystal, or the enhanced crystal teleport thing, and I sung it at the bowl. So now I've got that. It's in my bank. I'll even show you, dude. It's pretty amazing. You have it, and then you rub it, and it's got infinite teleport, so I don't have to worry about recharging my crystal. So every, couple of farm runs, once a week or something. Which, that's a big poggy moment. Big happy. Where is it? There's this baby. Look at that. Absolutely disgusting that I have that. It took me a grand total of 46 pickpockets to get my enhanced teleport crystal, by the way. 46. Let me tell you what. That was not suffering. That was pure, unabridged elation. That almost makes up for the 81 Hesperies killed without the bucket. I'm getting to the point where I might as well just go burst up the mage level for the, well, I think I might already have it for the, fertile soil, and then go spam the blast, or the blast, whatever, the blast mine, the place where you can get the, ultra compost spell and upgrade it, because I'm starting to get a stack of, the big astrals, but 10k of these are already, going to my altar once I go and get the pyramid plunder thing, the, scepter. I haven't done it yet, but I probably should at some point. Did I just not even drink a single sip of the pink stuff last run? Yeah, I don't think I did. I am so beyond needing pink stuff. I'm no longer cooking with pink sauce, as the kids say these days, as the youngins might relate to you. I, someone who is clearly the most hip and with Generation Z, we're all in that one together. No cap, FR, as one would say. Straight bussin'. straight bussing, dude. I never even thought I would get old, man. Throughout my life, I pretty much planned to have already been dead by this point. Like, I was going straight for the hedonism early on in life, and, you know, to hell with the consequences. And now the consequences weren't even as bad as I thought they were going to be. Just like, you know, pleasant surprise. So yeah. And maybe that's the best argument for a pro-natalist position, is that the consequences are probably not as gut-wrenchingly terrible as you naturally would assume they would be. Sippy, sippy, sippy. And yeah, who knows, dude? Just think positive thoughts, dude. Just why even think about it? Just, like, click on the altar and then click on the rune pouch and everything's gonna be fine, dude. Why do you have to think about it so much? See, it's just like that. Just click, 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 empty it, teleport out, and then I'm gonna repair because I've lost count of how many I am at. But I can tell you what, it's not enough. That's all I know so far. That's kind of the story of my life, though. Is I can't tell you how much further everything has to go, but I can tell you that it's not going to be enough, no matter how much further you go. But yeah. Oh well. Boom, boom, yum. Yum, 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 yum. Dale essence, Dale essence. Sip, 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 sip. We're getting real Skitzo here. We're starting to delve into the deep territory. You know, like, if this tunnel was like an allegory for my mind, right? Like, my mind would be more along the lines of this tunnel, right? Short, narrow, slowly breaking. At the end, there's just this impediment that you have to, like, push through to get anything done. That's again, things are getting dark. Very dark, but at least the lava is not very dark. It's very bright. Like, I'm not sure why the lava up here is so much different from the lava down there, though. Like, these are both lavas, I have to assume. I don't know, maybe this is like a lake of, like, corn syrup or something. Maybe down here is the real hell, and that's like the WEF, or the United Nations, is there trying to force the corn syrup into you, and, like, this is like the UN officers and stuff, and you're, like, running away from them, trying to escape. They're chasing you through, like, a cornfield or something, and they're literally turning everything into oil as you walk. The ground is just slippery, and you're rushing away. You know, they've got their military hard hats on it, and they're, like, firing tranquilizer darts at you. And instead of the darts containing, like, the tranquilizing fluid, they just contain corn syrup, and that's, like, your kryptonite. If you get hit, you're going to, like, bubble up like the Witch of the West, and there's nothing you can do about it. But by golly, the UN is going to inject you with the corn syrup, and you're going to like it. You will live in the pod, and you'll eat the bugs. You will reproduce as well, because the powers that be need more of your progeny. They need more of your worker-slave drones, so you must submit to their rule. My God. And with that, I think that's a good spot. I think, yeah, that's what we're gonna have to call it. I think wiser words have never been uttered by another human being, and I hope you enjoyed them. You probably didn't, but that's fine. I tried at least. You have a good day. I am going to go pass out now. Yep. That's what I'm doing. The lights are going out.